Hey kids, it's another rousing episode of me doing a review of a Sega CD game. This one I'm actually going to pause it as a review, so yeah, we'll be able to give it a more thorough, take. Wearing sunglasses because I'm using a new lighting situation and it's extremely freaking bright. So I'm just a rock star, baby. Like it or leave it. MGD, baby. But, so today, I'm going to be reviewing none other than Sherlock Holmes, Consulting Detective. Now, this was actually one of the pack-in titles for the Sega CD Model 1. I'm not sure if this was a pack-in title for Sega CD Model 2 because it was just Sewer Shark, wasn't it? But it's kind of weird because I bought my Model 2 Sega CD off eBay in March of 2002, I think. And when I got it, the guy sent me all the pack-in titles for the Sega CD Model 1. Plus Sewer Shark. So I got Sewer Shark, and I got Sherlock Holmes, and Sega Classics. I got the, that paint rock thing, whatever that was, and I got Soul Feast. Yeah, that was kind of interesting. But, yeah, but at any rate, so here's Sherlock Holmes, Consulting Detective. I think it's an interesting game. It was one of the launch titles for the console, so it showed off what the console could do, made everybody go crazy because it's full motion video, real actors, real sets, real Hollywood dues being paid to the Actors Guild. Yeah, so I really don't have much else to say about it, so I guess we can just get right into the game, because I'm kind of sick of talking about it. Let the game speak for itself. I'm going to take off the jacket while I actually play. It's already starting to get a little bit hot under these lights. Okay. Okay, so when you load up the game, it has a table of contents, and then it has 3 missions on this volume. There's 2 volumes, Volume 1, and then Volume 2 was sold separately in the cardboard long box. So with this one, we'll just go to the Mystified Murderess, because that one I think I probably do rather quickly. I want to take up everybody's time. And so, of course, Sherlock Holmes gives an intro.
Burglar strikes again. Series of burglaries. 6 over the period from June 2nd to June 17th. On July 2nd, the 7th occurred at the home of Sir Sanford Leeds. Cleopatra tiara stolen, it says. As in the other cases, no sign of extensive search by the thief, and only 1 piece of jewelry involved. Victims elsewhere at the time. Here's a complete list of the particulars, Holmes, if you'd care to read it.
I believe you'll find them in the study.
How do you do, gentlemen? I am Gerald Locke.
Please be seated, Mr. Locke. How can we be of service?
3 days ago, Guy Clarendon was found murdered at Halliday's. It's preposterous, but Miss Frances Nolan has been charged and is being detained at the criminal court, Old Bailey.
Frances Nolan. Ah, yes. Sister of Loretta Nolan. Only surviving heirs of Sir Malcolm Nolan, founder of the Aberdeen Navigation Company.
So as you notice, they're throwing out names, so you got to be picking up on the names
when some lunatic
and the locations and other things of that nature.
Seems to me that later I heard something about it being a case of mistaken identity. Wasn't one of their little offspring in the carriage with them at the time?
Yes, it was
Elementary,
Loretta,
Watson.
Francis's sister.
Elementary.
She was only 4. Miraculously, she was uninjured.
Mr. Locke, I've heard that you are a suitor for Miss Frances Nolan's hand, are you not?
Yes.
And was it not also true that she was being courted by Guy Clarendon?
Unfortunately, yes.
Have you any idea why Frances Nolan was charged with the crime?
Well, she was discovered over the body with a pistol in her hand.
That would do it.
But you don't understand. Frances is totally incapable of murder. Not even of a scoundrel such as Guy Clarendon.
Scoundrel? But he's from such blue blood. Also, if I'm not
Blue
mistaken,
blood.
he's an accomplished batsman for the West London Cricketers. A ranked fencer in international competition.
He was also a bit of a bounder, Watson.
What an understatement. Guy Clarendon was excessively fond of cards and strong drink. His father had all but disinherited him. I tried to tell Frances that Clarendon was no good, but to no avail. And now look at the mess she's in. Will you help?
Most certainly.
But, so now we said we would help. We've taken on the case. Loading time. It's actually one of the rare Sega CD games that has, it's a loading. I don't want to say excruciating loading because it's really not that bad. It was like, that was like, what, 5 seconds? But still, it's loading nonetheless. So here we go. If we click on that, that goes back to the main menu. If we click on that, that brings up the notes for the case that we took. And if we click on this, this just brings up the London directory. Exit. And if we click on this, this brings up the newspaper where we can choose different newspapers. So, since they mentioned Clarendon, we'll just go ahead and go with that possibly. Start with that and go from there. So we can choose a name. And then we can choose a horse and carriage when we actually travel that house and question them.
This is a difficult thing for a man to say about his only son.
Difficult.
Guy was a wastrel and a ne'er-do-well. Only a
Ne'er-do-well.
short month or so ago, I gave him £5,000 and told him that was the last he'd see of my money. I'd hoped the shock would bring the boy around, make him realize he had to settle down, instead of wasting his life on gambling and gallivanting around with that wild woman.
Which wild woman was that?
Loretta Nolan, of course.
You mentioned
Loretta
gambling,
Nolan,
Sir
of
Francis.
course.
Have you any idea with whom he gambled or who might have wanted to kill him?
I wish I did. He told us nothing. He only came around when he needed money. When I told him there'd be no more,
That's the only
we
time I
never
ever come
saw
around.
him. Just about broke his mother's heart. There, Gertie. We still have one another.
That's funny. Moments later, the plot thickens.
I've something you ought to know about Master Guy. One morning, rather early, about 4 or 5 weeks ago, I heard a terrible clatter downstairs. So I
Twas
came
a
down
clatter.
to investigate. It was Master Guy just coming home. He was in a terrible state, all battered and bruised, with a fresh cut on his forehead. I asked him who did it to him, and he wouldn't say.
Your mother!
I think he was afraid for his life.
Okay, so the video sequence ends. Then we go back to the investigation and continue down the line. So I mentioned it was at Holiday. What you doing? Nothing, chilling at the Holiday Inn. So we're gonna go to the Holiday Inn and see what they have to say. Yeah, we can click on these different things and this will give us a clue. Clarence guy. So we'll just go ahead and go to the hotel.
Clarendon, poor chap. He arrived on the 29th day of May and was given a front room on the 3rd floor. 2 days later, he asked to be
Snoop
moved
Dogg
to
and
suite
Sheeny comes
205.
busting out.
To your knowledge, did he have any visitors?
Only 2 that I'm aware of. One was a most disagreeable fellow. He was rather large, had a
Most
thick
disagreeable.
walrus moustache, and a very prominent scar down his cheek. He arrived on the 1st of June, the very day of Mr. Clarendon's move. He simply came in, sat down in the lobby, and waited. 20 minutes or so later, Mr. Clarendon came down from his room. The big man yanked him aside. I was about to send for a bobby when Mr. Clarendon signed me that all was well. After a few minutes, they left together.
Send
I
for
never saw
Bobby,
the man
what the
again.
F is that?
His other visitor, who came by quite frequently...
Lewis Clark, if
was
you're
a most
watching,
striking
what the
woman.
F is send for
She
a Bobby?
was quite fashionably dressed. She had a most distinctive laugh, very full and deep. I've no idea who she was.
Please, tell us about the morning of July 2nd.
It was about 9 o'clock when a woman entered. She was rather plain-looking, and I wouldn't have noticed her, except for the fact that she came in the front door, looking neither left nor right, and proceeded directly up the staircase. It couldn't have been
came
more
in the
than
front door
30
without
seconds
looking
later
around?
when I heard a bang, followed by a woman's scream. I dashed upstairs to the 2nd floor. The door to room 205 was open. Inside, I found...
Listening
the
to this,
body
I feel like
of
I'm
Mr.
listening to
Clarendon
"'Twas the
and
Night
the
Before
woman who had
Christmas."
just come up.
Heard a clatter. I
She
dashed
was
up the
lying in
stairs. I heard a
room
woman
in the center of the
scream.
room with a pistol
A
in her
woman's
hand.
scream was in.
I
that.
revived her with some whiskey. When she came
Yeah, you
to,
did.
she was totally disoriented. She had no idea where she was or what she'd done. When she saw Clarendon's body, she let out a shriek and dropped the pistol. I summoned the police.
Tell me, at what hour are the hotel's front doors locked?
10 o'clock, sir. Anyone who arrives after that has to be let in by the night staff. Of course, Mr. Clarendon was never one of those. He was always in his room before 10.
May we see his room?
Moments later.
What have we here, Watson?
What do we have here?
Statement.
Look here, Holmes. Appears the maid missed a spot in her sweeping.
Good thing she did, Watson. You're staring at evidence.
Blood.
What's this stain here?
Smells like a fine sherry. Looks like someone's been celebrating.
Question is, was it with the body or over it?
Nothing much here. Couple of shirts and 3 pair of shoes.
But what you failed to notice, my dear Watson, is that one of the pairs of shoes is canvas and has been dyed black. Interesting. A sweater and trousers. An ensemble in black.
Not much of a view. All I can see is a brick
The killer
wall
was a
building
knight.
across the alley.
I mean, a ninja.
Ivy vines winding up a trellis.
Nowhere to. Just a regular point-and-click adventure.
Do you remember a woman who came in recently and purchased a derringer?
Oh, matter of fact, I do, sir.
Derringer?
We don't get women in here very often, especially not alone. And I particularly remember that one because she was so pretty and she looked like she really knew how to have a good time, if you'll pardon the expression.
Do you remember her name?
I should say I do. She repeated it twice whilst I was filling out the order form. Seems like it was very important to her that I get her name right. let me see, it was Francis, no, Les, well, it was Francis something or other, sir.
So, yeah, as you can basically see, we just pretty much traipse around London and interview people and interrupt their day-to-day life so we can meddle in their business and they can answer our questions.
I understand that Wilfred Robards is considering taking
this
Miss
blowhard.
Nolan's case. He might be able to help
Powdered
you.
wig.
If you'd like, I can arrange an interview with Frances Nolan. She's being held downstairs, you know.
Cheerio.
We might be able to help you, Miss Nolan, if you could just remember what happened that night in Mr. Clarendon's room.
Well, that's just the trouble. I can't remember anything except seeing Guy's body across the room and the pistol in my hand.
Where did
The
you
piston?
get the pistol?
I've no idea, though the police assure me it's mine. I didn't know Guy was at Halliday's. I've never even been there before. And why would I shoot him anyway? We love
'Cause he deserved it.
There, Miss Nolan. Stiff upper lip.
What is this, an AC/DC song?
Miss Nolan,
I was
the
born
last
with
thing
a
you
stiff
remember before the room at
upper
Halliday?
lip.
Oh, hot cocoa in bed.
I beg your pardon?
Well, every night before I retire, my maid, Grace, brings me a cup of hot cocoa.
How nice.
Yes.
And before that?
Well, before that, I dine with Dr. Trevelyan, as I do every Sunday evening. My sister, Loretta, is under his care. The doctor and I have become good friends over the years. He left at 10 o'clock, as he always does.
Well, where did you first meet Guy Clarendon?
At the country estate of Cornelius Oldwine in March. My sister, Loretta, was attending a party there. I suppose things got a bit out of hand because it seems she dived into a fountain. She caught pneumonia, and I had to go and fetch her home. Guy was also
She got pneumonia.
and that's where we met.
And he immediately began paying court to you?
Oh, heavens, no. Nobody seems to take much notice of me. I suppose that comes from having such a wildly attractive sister. That's why I was so surprised when he called a few weeks later. We began seeing a great deal of each other. We went on long carriage rides, had picnic lunches. It was all quite lovely. And then on the 5th of June, he declared his love for me and asked for my hand in marriage. I was so happy. I couldn't have killed him.
Give
How
this
do you
whore
explain
an
your
Oscar.
presence at Halliday?
Look at his acting. Academy
It's just like the other
Award.
2 times.
You've had memory losses before.
Yes, twice in the past month. The first time I found myself atop a horse in Hyde Park, with no recollection of how I got there. The last thing I remember was having lunch with my sister Loretta. Then there I was, atop a chestnut mare.
How peculiar.
The funny thing is, I'm terrified of horses.
You mentioned there was a second time.
Yes, a few days later, I met with my solicitor, Hiram Davenport. Then the next thing I know, I'm at the Newgate Street station. I consulted my physician, Dr. Mason, and he was quite as baffled as I was.
One last question, if you will. What is your relationship with Gerald Locke?
Oh, Jerry, he's a dear old friend. Though I'm afraid we had a falling out of late. He said some very unkind words about Guy.
Uh-oh. Let's see what old Mr. Davenport has to say about the whole matter.
So, sorry to have kept you waiting, gentlemen. I assume you are inquiring about the Nolan girls.
Yes, we are. How long have you been their solicitor, Mr. Davenport?
Actually, in practice, I am serving that function only for Frances. Loretta has not sought a word of my advice since she came of age and was able legally to get her hands on her trust fund. Had Loretta the presence of mind to follow my good counsel, I'm certain she would be in a far better financial situation today.
Do you recall a meeting with Miss Francis last month when she blacked out?
Well, I did have a very odd meeting with both Miss Francis and Miss Loretta several weeks ago.
How so?
Well, I wouldn't say she blacked out as such, but she did leave rather unexpectedly. We were in the middle of our discussion when I was called out of the office. I was gone not more than 20 minutes. When I returned, Miss Francis had a very strange look in her eyes. She mumbled something and promptly left. Miss Loretta laughed that very disturbing laugh of hers and departed as well.
Let's go see what old sis has to say.
Enter and be recognized.
Recognized!
Oh, you don't wish to play Her Majesty, eh? Very well.
You do not seem particularly disturbed by the recent turn of events, Miss Nolan.
Each of us grieves in his own way, Mr. Holmes.
It must be difficult for you to face the possibility that your own sister may have killed your dearest chum.
Guy was fun to be with. And as for Frances, I love her dearly, but, well, it's funny to think Miss Right and Proper has finally gotten herself into a bit of a jam.
Miss Nolan, may I ask, when was the last time you saw Guy Clarendon?
Let me think. I believe it was the Richmond's party last Thursday. Yes, I'm sure of it. God, we did cut it up a bit there.
Cut it out. Oh, wait, wrong
We
one.
did not go home together, if that's what you're implying. That would have broken Frances's heart. She was head over heels for Guy, you know. She had some foolish notion that he was going to marry her. Not that someone like him ever would. But I do recall her saying, and it might have been the night of his death, that she was going to have a talk with him about their future.
Their future? Well, I'm going to talk to a couple more people and wrap this up.
Sure, I remember Clarendon. He and his lady friend used to stop in here from time to time. Usually on their way to Kilgore's gaming parlor or coming back from it. Rumor has it, Clarendon was into Kilgore for a sizable sum.
Do you happen to know how much?
£7,000 was the figure I heard.
$7 billion.
Got to the point Kilgore wouldn't allow him in the door. Clarendon made a big fuss till Gus Bullock stepped in. Clarendon backed down pretty quick. Don't blame him none. Nobody in their right mind would want to mess with the likes of Gus.
Do you think Bullock was involved in the murder?
Nothing you could tell me about that bloke could surprise me. Anyway, Kilgore makes it clear to Clarendon that he wants his money. Then, a month or so later, Clarendon comes in all smiles. And he and Kilgore getting on like chums. Figure Clarendon must have paid him
That's
back.
because they went out back and
Then,
messed
Calvin
around.
Leach steps into the picture.
Now, who's Calvin Leach?
Leach deals in what you might call stolen property. Square dealer, too. Give you one half the value of the article.
What does Leach have to do with Clarendon and Kilgore?
Usually nothing at all. But there it is. Leach, Kilgore, and Clarendon meeting late at night just as thick as thieves. The meetings continued on right up to, well, the night before Clarendon's death.
Very interesting.
Now, we've been standing here jawing, and I don't recall hearing anybody order nothing. What'll it be, mate?
Well, let's go see what old Leech has to say.
What did you learn of Calvin Leach?
I think Walkishin will set it all.
Did you ask Leach about Clarendon?
Yes.
What did he say, Watson?
Oh, yes, of course. He said he'd never heard of him.
Oh, yes, of course. Well, let's go see what the doctor has to say.
Doctor, we understand that you dined with Frances Nolan on the evening of July 1st.
Yes, that is correct. We dine every Sunday. Her sister Loretta has been under my care for some 10 years. First at the Mesmer Braid Institute and then in private practice.
Without breaching physician-patient protocol, would you mind telling us the nature of her illness?
She never quite recovered from the overwhelming trauma of watching her parents being blown to bits.
I quite understand.
As is often the case with young orphans, they tend to create fantasies about their parents. Miss Loretta Nolan truly believes that her father was the King of England, making her a princess.
Do you think her unconventional behavior stems from that fantasy?
Absolutely. As a princess, she believes she can do no wrong. I must say that she's worlds apart from her sister Frances.
Do you know Frances Nolan well?
Yes, rather.
Frances?
Through my treatment of her
Frances?
sister, I've known her for years. Let me say that it is difficult to believe that Miss Frances is capable of murder. She has a quiet, unassuming personality. An act of such direct confrontation would not be at all in keeping with her character.
At all?
Were Loretta and Frances close?
I know without a doubt that Miss Frances loves and cares for her sister almost as a parent would a child. Miss Loretta, well, she loves her sister as much as she is capable of love.
Well, so after we've walked around and talked to some people and gathered some information, we can finally go to court. So we'll go to court. So we have enough information to go to court.
Hear ye, hear ye. The Queen's Court stands in session.
Oh,
Mr.
wonderful.
Holmes, I understand you've been looking into the murder of Guy Clarendon.
That is correct, my lord.
Would you be so kind as to tell the court who killed Mr. Clarendon? Please choose from either your notebook or directory, Mr. Holmes.
Certainly, my lord.
I see. And what was Loretta Nolan's motive for killing Clarendon?
So you ask the question, and then we can sit here and choose the answer.
Ah, greed. Pure and simple. Now, have you determined why Frances Nolan went to Halliday's?
I have, my lord.
Please inform the court. Not a very sisterly thing to do at all. Is there anything else you wish to report to the court?
Yes, my lord. I believe we've also solved the case of the society burglar.
You don't say. Who is the guilty party?
Remember, we may choose from either the notebook or the directory.
I believe we are already aware of that, Watson.
Guy Clarendon was straight from the upper crust. Why ever did he turn to a life of crime? Congratulations, gentlemen. This was a difficult case.
On the contrary, my lord, it was elementary.
That's what you think. Nonetheless, the good
It was
people
elementary.
of London are forever in your debt.
That's what you think.
Thank you.
My pleasure, my lord.
Excellent job. If we had been doing our best, we could have solved this one in 40 points. But we're not too far off, are we?
Whatever. I could have solved it sooner. I just wanted to talk to more people.
Well, Watson,
In the end.
we should be very pleased with ourselves on this one.
Yes, indeed, Holmes.
2 cases solved for Scotland Yard. Though I doubt that Lestrade will consider himself in our debt. 2? Yes, indeed. First, the society burglar. Clarendon was £7,000 in debt to the gambler Kilgore. Unfortunately, he was in his father's bad graces and he was flat broke.
Do you suppose Kilgore sent Bullock around to rough Clarendon up?
Good deduction, Watson. You're learning. That's why he moved into Halliday's, to escape Gus Bullock.
And to pay off his debts, he took to burglary.
Right you are. He acquired a black sweater, trousers, and a pair of black canvas shoes so as not to be seen or heard in the dead of night. He chose victims of his own class whose social comings and goings he knew well and whose homes he'd visited often.
I still don't understand why, after he'd settled in at Halliday's, he changed rooms.
Elementary, my dear Watson. To
Elementary.
be at the back of the hotel with a vine-covered trellis conveniently leading in and out of his bedroom window.
Quite so. Positively clever of you.
May I continue?
Oh, please do.
On the 1st of June, Bullock tracked Clarendon down and confronted him in the lobby. Clarendon paid him the £5,000 that was given to him by his father.
He still owed Kilgore £2,000. And that was the same evening the society burglar struck for the first time.
So pleased you've been paying attention, Watson. Soon after that, Clarendon, Kilgore, and Calvin Leach, a known trafficker in stolen goods, were seen together. Notice, if you will, that 1/2 the value of the first 3 society burglaries is equal to £2,000. Half the value being the price normally paid by Calvin Leach for stolen goods. Notice also that this same amount is equal to the balance of Clarendon's debt to Kilgore.
Fascinating. So with his new vocation, Clarendon now had an easy source of income.
Quite so, as his succeeding bank transactions evidence. On the day after each of the next 3 burglaries, Clarendon made deposits. Everything went along swimmingly, and by June 30th, his debt was paid.
But the tiara was stolen July 1st.
Yes, Watson. Apparently, young Clarendon thought he'd found himself a new vocation. He might have lasted longer at it if he'd chosen something else to steal.
Whatever do you mean, Holmes?
Loretta Nolan's delusion that she was born of royal parentage proved to be his undoing.
If she took it, how did she manage? No one saw her enter or leave.
She came and went the same way Clarendon did, via the trellis. She was armed with a derringer purchased at Escorts in her sister's name. Clarendon returned from his night's work and poured 2 glasses of wine in celebration. That's when Loretta Nolan shot him and took the tiara.
How wicked of her.
Not nearly as wicked as what she did next.
What?
She went to her sister Frances's home and hypnotized her. She then proceeded to instruct her to go to Clarendon's room with the derringer and fire it into the ceiling.
Incriminate her own sister? But why?
If we could determine that precisely, we could start our own institute.
Sick mind, no doubt. But tell me, Holmes, how did Clarendon know the precise locations of each of his victims' jewels?
Excellent question, Watson. Although there is no clear-cut evidence for this, I can only assume that Loretta Nolan must have been in on it too. The only way Clarendon could have known the locations of the jewels was if the victims themselves had told him where to look. None of them recalls having told anyone, but in fact they did tell someone. Who? Loretta Nolan. She managed to hypnotize each of the ladies whose jewels were stolen and got them to reveal the precise locations of the family treasures.
And left them with no memory of having done so.
Precisely.
Astounding, Holmes.
Elementary, my dear Watson.
Elementary. Elementary, my Watson. Well, there you go, folks. Completed the murderous mystery. Loretta Nolan was the killer. So, spoiler alert, whatever. But yeah, so I mean, it's not too terribly bad if you know what you're doing, if you're just picking up on the clues and going just directly to it. But if you just kind of aimlessly walk around London and talk to everybody, it can be a very, very long, drawn-out game. But yeah, so with this and Volume 2, you're looking at 6 missions total, or 6 mysteries total to solve. So it's not too bad, but I definitely like Dracula Unleashed better. It, I don't know, it just seems better to me. It's kind of it's basically the same. It's the same type of game, point-and-click adventure with FMV in London, and you're sleuthing and that kind of thing. But it just seems like it's more action-packed. But yeah, I guess I don't really have much else to say about it. Thank you for tuning in and watching another stupid episode of my nonsense. And, well, I guess we'll have to do another episode soon enough. Peace out, folks, and thanks for watching.